Hi there, my name is Anna, and if this is your first time on the channel, that makes two of us. As you can probably tell from the title of this video, I suffer from OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. And since you clicked on this video, I assume that you're here to learn about OCD. Maybe you've been going through a really rough time, you're scrambling for answers and you think you might have OCD too. Or maybe you know someone in your life who's just been diagnosed and you want to be there to help. Maybe you're just curious about what OCD is, and that's completely fine too. This is a safe space and all are welcome here. First things first, I want to say that I am not a doctor or a psychologist or therapist or any kind of professional. I'm just a random person who's been dealing with OCD for about 15 years now. I wish I could put that on my CV. So I've had a lot of time to learn about this disorder and all the different kinds of crap it can throw at you. Of course, everyone is unique. The same disorder can look very different between two different people. And everything I'm about to say is rooted in my personal experience. Part of the reason that I'm making this video is that I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding around what OCD actually is, and one of the consequences of that is that people who experience it for the first time often don't recognize it as OCD and they don't understand what's happening to them. And like a lot of mental illnesses, OCD is something that can feel way scarier than what it actually is if you don't know what's happening to you. I remember how confused and horrified I felt when I was 13 years old and experiencing symptoms of OCD for the first time. It's a disorder that affects 1% of the general population worldwide. So it feels like there should be an easier way to get informed about it. So let's start at the beginning. OCD as a disorder, it's not as prevalent as something like anxiety or depression, but it's clearly common enough to have made its way into popular culture. You've probably heard someone on TV or in your life say something like, "Oh, I need everything to be super organized, I'm so OCD." Or, "I'm a neat freak, that's my OCD side." It's understandable for OCD to be perceived that way by the general public. There are indeed subtypes of OCD that involve having to keep things very tidy, having to wash your hands a lot. But these stereotypes, they often only look at the visible side of OCD. So that's only the tip of the iceberg. And they don't really focus as much on what causes these behaviors. And they assume that the motivation behind them is just something like, "You like things clean." And boy, if OCD really was just about that, my life would have been very, very different. So all mental health disorders are classified in this big book called The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is currently in its 5th edition. There are other classification systems for mental health disorders that are used throughout the world, but the DSM-5 is currently the main point of reference for mental health disorders in North America. So OCD is, as its name suggests, a disorder that's characterized by two core components: obsessions and compulsions. And according to the DSM-5, a person has to meet 4 different criteria in order to be diagnosed with OCD. Criterion A is the presence of obsessions, compulsions, or both. Criterion B is that these obsessions and compulsions must be time-consuming and cause clinically significant distress or impairment in daily functioning. Criteria C and D specify that these symptoms must not be attributable to a substance, a medical condition, or a different mental health disorder. And if you want to read the full definition, I've included a link in the description that you can go check out. The first prong of OCD is obsessions. They tend to start with an intrusive thought. And these thoughts are often very vivid, very graphic, and definitely unpleasant to have. These can be thoughts like, "I handled raw chicken while cooking, so that means everything in my kitchen is now contaminated with E. coli, and I can never ever step foot in there again." Or something like, "Maybe I accidentally ran over someone when I was driving earlier, and now I've committed manslaughter." Or it could even be something like, "What if I'm actually a future serial killer with cannibalistic tendencies who's gonna murder people and keep their organs in my fridge?" That last one is a genuine thought I had when I was 13, and it made me go through months of hell and eventually led to my diagnosis. A girl never forgets her first. Now, a lot of people with OCD have what is called fair insight about their disorder, which means that we will usually recognize our thoughts as weird, irrational, or just, plain ridiculous. Because of that, our first reaction is going to be to try and dismiss them. But it doesn't work, and they keep coming back again and again. And the more we think about them, the more real they start to feel. And that's very, very scary. Rationally, we may know that it makes no sense to avoid our kitchen for days. But what if it actually was covered in deadly bacteria? And again, rationally, we know that it's very unlikely that we ran over someone and somehow didn't notice. But what if we were really tired and that speed bump we felt a while back was actually a person? So you can see how these obsessions turn into thought loops of what if, what if, what if, and that results in a lot of mental distress. As a result, we will start engaging in what are called compulsions. So compulsions are these ritualistic behaviors that people with OCD will perform with the assumption that they'll somehow neutralize or negate our obsessions, that they'll protect us from it, or that they'll prevent the obsessions from becoming real. You might be thinking that this sounds a lot like superstition, and you wouldn't be wrong. OCD is like an extreme version of that old saying, step on a crack, break your mother's back. Now, some of these rituals can have a clear connection with the content of the obsession. For example, someone who obsesses over their kitchen being contaminated might find themselves spending hours cleaning everything in it with bleach. That would be a compulsion, and that would be an irrational behavior, but you still see where the logical connection between the obsession and the compulsion is coming into play. Similarly, someone who's worried about accidentally running over a pedestrian might stop on the road several times just to check their car. Once again, you see that there's a clear logical connection there. But a lot of the time, these rituals are compulsions. They'll seem completely random, like they have no link at all to the obsession that's actually bothering us. Compulsions are often based on a lot of repetitive behaviors, a lot of counting, things like flicking the light switch a specific number of times before coming out or going out of a room. It can be, arranging all of our stuff in a specific way until it feels just right. And doing these compulsions gives us a sense of safety and reassurance, even if we're aware rationally that they don't make any sense. As the DSM-5 describes, these compulsions will end up taking up a significant amount of time in our lives. Depending on the severity of our symptoms, we can lose hours, days, or weeks to doing these compulsions. We can become unable to go to work or school or just do normal things with our friends and family. I also have to specify that this feeling of reassurance we get from doing the compulsions, it's only temporary. Very often when we're in the middle of doing one of these compulsions, it feels like, okay, I just need to do it one more time, just one more time, and then my mind will finally be put at ease. That's a big fat lie. The truth is that intrusive thoughts will probably keep popping up every once in a while in our head because they're not abnormal in themselves. Everyone deals with intrusive thoughts from time to time. The difference with people who have OCD is that we pay way more attention than necessary to these thoughts, and we take them way more seriously than we should. And if we don't find a way to treat or manage these symptoms, our mind will keep latching on to these intrusive thoughts and turn them into soul-sucking spirals of what if. OCD is sometimes called the doubting disorder, and that's because it has this really annoying ability to chew through any kind of certainty you have, like a chinchilla through a computer cable. When most people have an intrusive thought, like, what if I push this person next to me onto the train tracks? They're able to brush it off. Like, that was a weird thought to have. And they go on with their day. But for people with OCD, that one thought can trigger hours, days, and even months of mental self-torture. And on that happy note, here's the good news. The good news is that OCD can be treated with a variety of therapy approaches, medication, and general coping mechanisms to improve your mental health. I personally started therapy when I was 13, and then a year after that, I started going on medication. It's not so much about curing the disorder once and for all, as it is about treating the symptoms and managing them on a day-to-day basis. And I don't want to be misunderstood here when I say that there's no cure for OCD. I remember when I was 13 and reading up about OCD for the first time, I came across a website that said these exact words. There is no cure for OCD. And I just started crying because at that time I was really at the bottom of the pit. I was fully caught in one of those doom what if spirals. And what I thought it meant was I'll feel this way for the rest of my life. But that's not what it means. If you're dealing with this right now, if someone you know and love is going through this and you're really seeing them struggling, you have to know that that's not what it means. Yes, you may encounter symptoms of OCD throughout your life, but you won't always be stuck in the worst part of it. OCD flare-ups come and go, but with the right kind of medication and the right kind of coping mechanisms, there's no reason that you can't live a rich, fulfilling, happy life and have the relationships you want and have the career you want and do the things that you want to do. You can get to a place where this thing that feels like it's taking over your life right now becomes just an annoying little gremlin you have to keep on a leash. Like, yes, it's there, it's annoying, but it's on a leash and you're the one in charge. If there's one thing you can take away from this video, let it be that. Screw that gremlin, you're in charge. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful in some way. If you want to learn more about OCD, I've included several links to some very informative websites in the description. And you can also subscribe to this channel where I'll keep posting videos about different OCD related topics. Bye.